Wednesday, Unwoke Nation, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 10 of the UnWokeShow, where free speech is welcome, all subjects are on the table, and your boys bring your topics raw and uncut every single Sunday, baby. I'm your co-host, Rich, along with my brother from another mother, Big Tim. How you doing, Tim?
Good, and you, Rich, man?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Hey, first off, guys, we actually want to give a great shout-out, a good Dankeschön to Deutschland. Yes, that's right, people. We are actually international now.
Yeah, man, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, we've wanted to take the show everywhere possible, and we actually found out we've gone international. And also, me and Tim, we are so excited. We're very thankful for each and every one of you guys, no matter where you are in the world. But we definitely want to give a good shout out to those people in Germany for being a part of Unwoke Nation. Definitely, if you like what we're talking about, make sure, just to like and subscribe. Check us out on all of our social medias, on Twitter, on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Get the word out there, guys. So we are loving every single Wednesday.
Absolutely, man. And we want that feedback from you guys. We keep checking the feedback inbox. Haven't gotten anything yet. Like my buddy Rich said, like, subscribe. We want to hear from you guys. Again, feedback is at feedback@unwoketheshow.com. Again, it's feedback@unwoketheshow.com. We want to hear from you guys, and we just looking forward to continuing the success that we've had so far. Super excited about where we're going, and
absolutely
as we continue to broaden out and entertain more listeners and gain new listeners, all the time. So again, guys, we want to hear from you. Any and all feedback, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yep. Like us, not. We still want to hear from you.
If you hate us, send us feedback. If you like us, send us feedback. It doesn't matter. We want to hear from you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So once again, guys, thank you so much. Anywhere where you are in the world, we definitely hope to, get to the point where we are in many, many different countries, hopefully by the end of the year. And also, but yeah, definitely help us out, guys. Where you love the show, we'd love to hear from you and be able just to pass on the word about the Unwoke Show.
Fantastic. All right, Rich, send us off tonight. For those of Unwoke Nation, we are going to talk about something that has been looming in the news. I believe, Rich, you wanted to cover all the shenanigans that is tied around Title 42.
Yeah, so, as for those of you guys who are here in America, obviously you would know that last week, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, the bill that was put together by the previous administration, by the Trump administration, was helped to basically protect, to make sure that we were able to have a proper law process where people who are who might be immigrants who are coming through Mexico and Central and guys, out there, it's phenomenal. I mean, some of the stories that I've been hearing about the miles and miles that people are traveling to get up there. But despite that, there's a situation where we're dealing with a lot of situations with illegal immigration that's going on, and that process of being Title 42 was basically to make sure that we were doing things correctly by the rule of law, and also, but unfortunately, due to the bill that came up, and also we were dealing with a huge uproar that was all across the news and across, Americans all over here were talking about where now there's more people rushing. In fact, where I think El Paso, where was really El Paso, and I think it's called Brownsville, Texas.
Brownsville, Texas.
Yeah,
okay.
Brownsville, Texas was dealing with an influx of people who are doing illegal immigrants, and it's like, it's just been such a talk and everything. And I know, Tim, if you got some information on that, and also
for the Reader's Digest on Title 42, essentially was a bill that was passed, a COVID era bill that was passed to restrict immigration into our country based on health reasons. The potential for health risks that could impact this country. And so that's really what Title 42 substantially was supposed to be about. It has caught a lot of discussion, within the news media and news outlets, because it was also being used as a form of immigration denial, and those, seeking asylum in this country. It was being used as a way of denying those people aside from seeking asylum in our country. And now that that bill or that resolution has since expired, there has been this mass fear, or not this mass fear, there's been this fear that we're just going to see a mass infusion of immigrants, illegal immigrants, and those seeking asylum in our country since that expiration has taken place.
Mhm. And I know they were saying a lot. I mean, just even in general before this bill was put together and stuff. So we, according to statistics, they were saying that probably about by about 2050, where so we'll probably have a majority actually Hispanic population here, which is all great, and also that's all fine. But I think the people who have the questions where so I think it's two situations of one making sure that we're able to have people come here through the legal process, and also and that's the thing about it. So I think a lot of the people who are against with Title 42 going away, I don't think that's like so much saying like, okay, we don't want anybody coming in our country. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a situation of that there is a legal process, and we want to make sure that we're able to do this where you're vetting people and stuff. So, and then the other part of it that has been a big concern, just in what the illegal immigration situation going on over the course of the last few years, that we're dealing with a lot of things such as like the sex trafficking and also dealing with the drugs and all. A lot of the I know a lot of the big things been going on is about fentanyl and how much are the drug cartels actually bringing those things in, and it's a major problem. I mean, as I understand or so, I think the director, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, was asked by the congressional committee about in regards to these wristbands, and he was asked directly as they were showing a picture of all these different colored wristbands, and when Secretary Mayorkas was asked the question, do you know what these wristbands mean? And he had no clue. And for those of you guys who don't know, especially being outside or maybe you haven't paid the story, you live out. So apparently, those way it's going is that the drug cartels who are actually trying to help some of the people getting across the border, I guess they're owed money. And I guess what happens is that each one of the wristbands, based on its color, tells people exactly how much money that they owe. Once they get on the other side of the border. I don't know how that all works or anything like that or so, but unfortunately, which is actually surprising, where so the director or the Secretary of Homeland Security had absolutely no clue what those were.
So these multicolored wristbands,
yes.
You owe the cartels this amount of money. Because I had heard in the news, there was a single father, or not a single, there was a father from Honduras who was coming, who had made the trek all the way up here because he was wanting to earn money and send back to his family in Honduras. These essentially asylum towns, if you will, that had been established at the border. Theft, rape. You definitely had the cartels trying to monetize every way possible. Even coming in by rail car and stuff.
Wow.
All these immigrants wanting to come and seek asylum, in our country. Some viewed Title 42 as a anti immigration ploy by former President Donald Trump. He was very anti-immigrant and trying to keep people, out of the country. Since then, there have been commercials on television where President Biden has said that, now we have an app where asylum seekers can go and request an appointment and go through the long process of seeking asylum. I know other countries such as Mexico and stuff are handling asylum seekers differently.
Some of them, I mean, I don't know if it's the current president, but I think the previous president, when all this was going on, where he actually said too, it was like, hey, if you guys want to stay in Mexico, you can. And I guess a lot of people wanted to be able to come to the United States, and I get it. It's like, I mean, it truly is the land of opportunity. I understand why people want to come here.
And so, I mean, it's for those that don't understand, asylum. They're essentially coming from their home country, um, and seeking asylum in the U.S. because of fear of persecution in their own country, right? Whatever you see in the news about Venezuela and several other South American countries and the amount of turmoil and stuff that is taking place in those countries. So, I mean, I'm not surprised, um, by, I don't know if it's a misfounded fear of the United States is all of a sudden just going to get inundated with, brand new immigrants, and this, the fear of some who have this thought of replacement theory.
Yes.
Rich, you had mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
what is it by 2015, or
2050.
2050, excuse me,
Yes.
that you said what?
So they're claiming, or that based on by 2050, they feel that the Hispanic community here in the United States will actually be a majority. That's what they're saying. And
Okay.
also, I don't want to uh, make people think, or that I think that's bad, or I mean that's not what we're trying to say here. We're just kind of going based on the statistic. And then, like I said, this has been going on way before the current situations and the last two presidents were. So this has been a statistic that's been out there for a while, so probably dating back to probably like the 2010s, if not the 2000s.
Okay. And well, I mean, that's so you see where this, like I said, I mentioned replacement theory, and white America, like we'll just put it out there, feeling that they could eventually be replaced by another group. So I mean, there's some of that. Um, uh, Again, there's this fear with the cartels that you had mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and the wristbands and Owen money. Cartels are definitely have their hand in this whole uh, asylum process. The extortion. They're targeting girls, targeting women. Um, so I mean, it's crazy to think that this is actually happening, but I think there's probably been a healthy fear in our own country about the flood of immigrants now that Title 42 has expired,
Yes.
that um, we will eventually, we being our traditional white Americans or Americans in general, are going to be as you said, replaced.
Well, I guess part of the question too is, when we deal about the process, that I've always had a concern of beforehand is the situation of when we have people coming over. Again, no one, at least I believe, that if there are people who are trying to seek asylum, that's not an issue. But the question is that I think it is important for anyone to actually know who's in the country. So the process that's part of been going on, that people have, that have some people against this, is that when people are coming across the border, they're given paperwork that states that they have to come back once on this side of the border, that they have to show up for a court date. Now, the problem they're saying that they're having is that people are being given these court papers to show up at a particular date, say 60 days later or something like that, but they're not showing up. So common sense makes you wonder, if you've traveled 2,000, 3,000 miles, whatever have you, by train, plane, or automobile, whatever it might be, and you traveled all this way, and then you finally get across the border, and they sit there and they say, hey, welcome to America. By the way, here's your paperwork and all. You have to show up at this particular date where it's on here. The question you ask yourself is, if I'm already here, what do I need to show up for a court date for? I got what I wanted. Does that make sense?
So what you're basically is, I'm in, I'm running, I'm out of here. See you type of
Hasta
thing.
la bye bye.
Yeah, you're out of here.
Yep.
Okay, it's totally possible. I don't. I see that argument. You would like to think that they actually show back up for their court date
But that's the thing, Tim. It's like, a good portion based on reports where, and this is whether it's CBS or it doesn't matter. It's like wherever he's like, they're all, it's like, they're not showing up. So, and then we're also dealing with a few situations. And also, like, let's talk about the situation that happened, was that a week ago, about the guy who's been over here 5 times and ended up murdering.
Oh yeah, in Texas.
Yeah, down in
It
Texas
was
and stuff like
identified
that.
as a white supremacist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, and he ends up murdering and stuff like that. He's been over the border, what, 4 or 5 times or something like that.
He's been sent back.
Yeah, he's been sent back 4 or 5 times. And it's like, so the question is that, we're not out there trying to vilify people who are coming over and saying everybody's criminals, but I think it's important that we make sure that we are vetting each and every person that comes across that border to make sure that there's not an issue with them. Are they a child molester? All these other different things. Or are they a person just like this guy you said is from Honduras? You know what? I have a family, I have a wife, 3 kids, and like that. I'm not really getting any jobs, something like that. I'm coming to America because I want something better for my family. I would think that people have no problems with that type of individual, but I do think it's important that we take the time to vet the people who are coming into America. Every president, when he is giving the oath, where he's asked to give the oath about protecting the sovereignty of the United States of America. That's his job. And so when that seems like it's not being done, I think that's when people get a little concerned. So I don't think it's asking very much for people to say like, hey, people want to come to America? That's great. But can't we make sure whether we know we have people coming in or there's no criminal background or anything like that? I mean, would you, Tim, feel that that'd be a fair way to look at it, or?
And like, so what's the context around
background checks? If we need a background check for getting a job, for getting a gun, for several other things that I probably can't think of right now, how is it unreasonable to do a background check on someone who's trying to come across the border and making sure so that they will be a law-abiding citizen of this new country?
So the difficulty in that is if they're not already in our system.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. That's exactly. Sure. Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to background check somebody, A, that's not already in our system, and B, I don't know what kind of access we have to other nations' systems.
This is the U.S. government.
Well, I understand it's the U.S. government, but are you saying we've got access to everybody else's database of? I
guess that's a question neither one of us can answer. But
right.
I guess we're just going off of what people basically say. The power of most first world countries who are able to do that. So if we think a couple years ago, do you remember when? Kind of somewhat off subject, but do you remember when they were talking about a lot of people trying to use certain what would you say tax havens?
Right.
So a lot
tax
of people were
yeah,
tax shelters and all the other stuff, and they ended up calling Switzerland, and they were saying, or I think this was during the Obama administration, and also what, like I said, president doesn't matter, and also, but it was just that they were looking into like, hey, you know what, we have a certain amount of people who are wealthy here, and they're basically using your banks in Zurich as a tax haven to not pay taxes here. And they were willing to figure out how to be able to do it. Now, Switzerland, from what I understand, Switzerland basically had a policy that, look, we don't deal with situations like that. People put money into our banks, or so we're not going to tell you who they are or something like that. I think from the last time I checked, they might have changed that. But my point of bringing that to the show is that if a government like a G8 government like the United States of America can do something as simple as figure out where people are hiding money, whether it's Switzerland, the Isle of Man, Cyprus, whatever the case may be,
sure,
wouldn't they be able to say, hey, we have Mr. Robinson who's from Ecuador. We should be able to call down to find out what his information is, what his background check, is there any problems with the police, and be able to check that through. And also, but like I said, neither one, I don't know.
Yeah, I would think what we're probably talking about from a criminal, if you're talking internationally, then you may be talking Interpol, but I don't know if I'm a Honduran and I commit a theft in Honduras, does that automatically go into an international criminal database that would show up, right? And I don't know.
Well, here's the thing, man. I mean, it's like we're an extraditing company. We're an extraditing country. So in
Right.
other words, if we have somebody who's committed something and they come here to America, we can send them out.
Right.
Wouldn't that be part of? Wouldn't that be? Would you say that would be one area of the possible process if we're going to use Interpol or whatever you want to call it, but whatever this system might be?
Well, at that point, they're in our system, right? Because we extradited them.
Mm,
If they
Maybe.
have, assuming they haven't changed their identity in some capacity,
and they've signed up for something,
right? Or
Okay,
they,
okay, I got you.
and we've processed them through our own criminal, devices, or that we have in place, right? They go into some database. I want to think.
In other words, you think if they were criminal, they probably would be wanting to lay low.
Well, but you would hope that, in our country with our vast access to technology, today that like I said, that there would be some type of paperwork going with this person that's being extradited, right?
Yes.
So at least we have an idea. What I'm saying is I don't know what kind of visibility we have into other countries outside of petitioning, say, their local immigration office, right? Or their local what is it? Places where we have in other countries that are embassy, petitioning the Honduran embassy on somebody, saying, "Hey, we need information on this person. Are they a criminal? Where are they coming from?" Because I think a lot of these people that are showing up, I don't even know that they necessarily have identification.
Yeah, and I get that.
It doesn't make it right,
Right.
and we shouldn't.
Because what do we do with the people like the MS-15, the gangbangers and stuff like? I mean, we captured a good portion of them, and outside of it being written on their body, I mean, there's got to be some way to go. Like, yeah, this guy's.
I would imagine they're going into a local law enforcement database that then gets updated to some national database. I would imagine if there's a gang database, if that gets run right, I mean, it runs through. I don't know what sort of resources law enforcement have. If they got to petition the FBI, and then if the FBI petitions Homeland Security, and then you can imagine all that red tape.
The web of whatever systems that need to be done or so. But I guess that's kind of what makes me think about it. It's like if we have a system like that, whether you said like a gangbanger or whatever criminal type of database or so, is there something? I mean, like I said, going back to the example with Mr. Robinson, or who's from Ecuador or something like that. It's like, I mean, we don't know if each individual might have some type of social security number, or we, like I said, we only go based on what we know here in America. We know everybody has a social security number and stuff like that. Maybe in other countries where some of you listeners in other countries, you might have some similar system or something like that. But it is kind of hard to tell. It's like, how do you do that? But there's got to be a way to make sure that when we have guys like the guy who killed the 5, including a 9-year-old, outside of trying to deport him 4 or 5 times, I mean, it's like, there's got to be something.
Are you saying that the wall that was built isn't working?
I pretty much say I'm going to go with that. It's probably not working.
It's probably easier just to tunnel under. There's an idea.
Yeah, that's...
So, according to the Associated Press, as we're talking about Title 42 here, the U.S. has said it will accept up to 30,000 people per month from Venezuela, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Cuba, as long as they come by air, have a sponsor, and apply online first. The government will also allow up to 100,000 people from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras into the U.S. who have family here if they too apply online. Border officials will otherwise deport people, including turning 30,000 people per month from Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Cuba essentially if they're crossing over illegally, and they will be sent back over the border to Mexico. Other migrants also may be allowed in if they apply through the CBP, so that's Charlie Beta Paul 1 app. And this is what I was referring to earlier, because, John Oliver covered this very subject on Last Week Tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this new app. And so what's happening is appointment times open up at 9 on this app, assuming that these people have a phone and have internet access. And he's saying by 9:05, all appointments are gone. So you have all these people just stuck, sitting, waiting, trying,
I mean, practically with their finger on the phone.
Yeah, because because of all the crime and the rape and everything that is taking place in these essentially border villages or border towns, waiting to get into our country.
Yeah, I mean, and you like I say, you find people who are desperate enough, and they have, say, little children or something like that, where you run into that bad guy where they're say like, hey, you know what? You want to get across the border? We got a passage or to get you across the Rio Grande or whatever case may be, and also give us $2,000, put on your wristband, and here we go. I mean, that's sad.
It's so
thousands of people trying to get into this app. Wow.
So, I mean, but think about families, right? The Associated Press goes on to say that families crossing the border illegally will be subject to curfews, and the head of household will have to wear an ankle monitoring bracelet. Immigration officials will try to determine within 30 days whether a family can stay in the U.S. or be deported. Usually the process would take years.
Oh,
so, I do think on a certain level there is a crisis. Well, I don't want to say. We have a situation at the border. We've got these border towns. We've got people wanting to get in our country because fear of persecution in their home countries, right?
Yeah.
The border and border police, we even sent, I believe, reserves.
Mm-hmm. From what I understand, I think
down to assist Border Patrol. I mean, to say that Border Patrol and immigration is just overwhelmed, is an understatement.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like an understatement. I think the last time that there was a bill proposal in Congress, they tried to propose where trying to send 300 people to help ICE down there on the border, and I think the people down there, they were like 300 people is not going to help us with the thousands of people that are sitting under a bridge right now trying to figure out what they're going to do. And I guess that's where some people are kind of wondering, it's like, are you guys really serious about this? We have people who are part of ICE saying like, it seems like this is a very, very much like a crisis that needs to be taken care of, and who's taking this seriously?
Well, so we're talking about overcrowding, right?
Yes.
And so, again, the Associated Press, the article that I'm referring to, Border Patrol stations are meant to house migrants temporarily and don't have capacity to hold the volume of people coming, right? So there's just the sheer volume, but, they've got some stations that are already too crowded. As a result, agents began releasing migrants into the U.S. with instructions to appear at an immigration office within 60 days or face deportation, right? So there's, I'm being released. I'm taking my release and running, and I'm not, you released me in Texas, but I'm in Rhode Island. If the governor of Florida flew me to Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just kind of see, that's just kind of what I was bringing up before. It's kind of like, sit there, you get your paperwork and everything, they let you cross the border, and ready, go!
Yeah, and then, also agents were told to begin releases in any area where holding facilities were at 125% capacity or the average time in custody exceeded 60 hours.
Whoa. I don't know how to respond to that. It's like, I mean,
And they were also told to start releases if 7,000 migrants were taken into custody across the entire border in any one day.
7,000.
Yep, and it goes on to say that that's already happened with some 10,000 people taken into custody on Tuesday.
This is just last Tuesday, or this
Yeah, on Tuesday.
just yesterday.
Yeah.
See, this is what makes you wonder when it comes to a lot of the numbers, where you and I have been hearing this for over a year now, where they're saying the estimation of amount of people who have come illegally across the border, they said it was something like 1.5 to 2 million, and actually they admit they think they're off.
Oh, I would.
They are majorly off by how many people are truly in this country. They think it's more.
Well, I don't disagree that that's probably more. It just depends. Some would argue that are these really migrants, or are these migrants that are really criminals, disguising themselves as migrants trying to get into our country, right?
And that's the point. It's like,
but if we don't have a valid system to
right.
really to check that, and if they've not been identified in our own
right,
federal database system, I mean, yeah, it gets sensationalized a lot in the media, but it sounds like there's this plan by U.S. officials to open 100 regional migration hubs across the Western Hemisphere where people can seek placement in other countries, including Canada and Spain. It also goes on to say that there will be hubs in Colombia and Guatemala, but it's not clear where others will be or when they will be up and running.
See, and that's the thing. You're right. I mean, we see a lot of these. We've all heard about these, sanctuary cities and different things like that. Just recently on Sunday, back where I'm from and everything. So there's a town that's called South Shore, Illinois. And it actually made the news and all because I guess the local people had found out, I guess, from the local community, and I guess there must have been a local neighborhood board meeting or something like that. And I guess what they were saying was that, I guess they had put together a phase that they're saying, and they're proposing there's basically going to be a phase where they're going to be moving somewhere between 250 to 500 immigrants from the border to an old high school that's there in South Shore, Illinois.
Your old high school?
No, not my old high school. This guy. Really?
Who invited this guy?
Self-side? No. But it's like, yeah, and I guess the people were just, they came to this meeting and they were upset. One lady stood up flat out and said, it's like, wait a minute. Instead of us, we're giving all this stuff for this, why aren't we helping, the Americans and the poor who are in our area where, because, it's, like I said, it's kind of, it's on the south side of Chicago and like that. So, there's some hard times where in certain areas of the south side, but the lady stood up there to the board that was given the proposal, what was going on, saying, like, why aren't we helping people here in the local neighborhood that are homeless and all these different things were. So, and remind you, the city of Chicago were considering themselves as one of the sanctuary cities. So, as much do you have where you want to help people out, and we do. This is what America's like, yeah, we want to help, but when does it come to the point where you can't do that anymore? The state, New York City, for the longest time said, oh, we'll take in everybody like that, and then all of a sudden, Mayor Adams sits there and says that, hey, yeah, start telling the government, we can't take any more people in. So when does this get to the point where it seems like it's out of control? I mean, what's your thoughts?
So this whole notion of out of control, I think it gets to a topic that comes up probably every presidential election for the last, would you say, 12 years, has always been immigration reform, and we need comprehensive immigration reform.
Okay.
Right? It's a subject that always comes up as, my plan is to call for comprehensive immigration reform. Okay, so what does that really mean, comprehensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
The last president said, "Oh, we're going to build 8,000 miles of new wall that's going to keep all these immigrants out, and we're going to get other countries to pay for it," which that was just a flat out lie.
When he said something about, say, we're going to make Mexico pay for the wall.
Yeah, and 4,000 miles of that wall never got built, right? Or no, only 4,000 miles of it got built. Let me stand corrected.
And the Mexican president at that time was like,
"Huh?" Yeah, he's like, "No, I'm not gonna do that." So, we do need to overhaul immigration. What that looks like, I don't know. It's above my pay grade, right?
right. Both of us, huh?
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to watch this, upcoming presidential election season to see if, again, we need comprehensive immigration reform. We need to get more resources to Border Patrol and really crack down on immigration. Or do you take a hard line and stay in the sand and say, borders are closed, folks.
Yeah.
We're closed for the time being. We put a sign out there, we'll open in 2026, 2028, right? Or are we going to try to fix this plane that's already in flight that we just keep throwing Band-Aids on, that it's not working?
In other words, it's kind of like, you're saying it in a way like that we shut down everything to truly revamp how we do the system of allowing people to come into the country. And what you're saying, in the meantime, no, we're not letting anybody in, no matter where they come from or whatever the case may be.
But, yeah, or it's that old adage that you look at a wall, you see all these cracks in the wall, there's a small leak.
Yep.
You stick your finger in that leak. For a brief second, everything is good. Now you got a new leak that pops up, so you stick a finger in that leak. Now you've got two leaks that you think you've sought. Oh, now there's a third, right? You just you see this slow domino of issues taking place. Or honestly, for me, because all these illegals are such a drag on our economy, if you want to come to my country, just register.
Yes.
Pay taxes. I'll be fine.
Right.
But at some point, we have to say the free ride is over. If you're here illegally, you've got one of two options. You either get deported, or you go through the process to become a U.S. citizen.
And here's another thing, Tim, that we have not brought up on the show. What about the people, and I don't know if you've ever heard some of these stories, I know I've heard a few, but what some of the people who actually have gone through the process that have come from, Turkey or whatever case, you and I, we have a friend that we know who came from Europe, and, they went through, the processes of doing what they need to do and going from there what do we say to that person that says, hey, I paid whatever it is, $1,000. I went through the process. I did all the testing about the Constitution and, waved the flag and said the promise of my allegiance to the United States. And, what do we say to those people? So when they're looking at I would love to interview. And in fact, guys, if you're a person who has actually done that process to get here to America from your home country, and also, guys, definitely reach out to us on feedback at unwoketheshow.com. Again, feedback at unwoketheshow.com. If you're somebody who was actually went through the process to become a U.S. citizen, we would love to hear your thoughts on this topic, and basically, explain to us, how do you feel? How do you feel about this going on? So, but what do we say to those type of people?
Thank you.
Yes.
Right? That's what I would say. Is I would say thank you for doing that. Because imagine if you and I traveled to another country. Let's just say we just illegally crossed the border into Mexico.
Yes.
What do you think is going to happen to us?
Like in that movie, 2020?
What do you think would happen to us?
Oh, they send our asses back.
Well, first we're going to sit in a Mexican prison.
That does not sound appealing at all.
No, it does not. And then eventually, and I use that term eventually very loosely,
Mm-hmm.
we get tossed back over.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like, yep, you gringos, you going back home.
Yeah. I mean, so, you know, we say in our immigration, give us your sick, give us your poor,
Yes.
right? Come, we're the land of the free, land of opportunity,
Absolutely.
right? And I think on a certain level, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
But is it maybe time to change that stance a little bit and say, you don't register, you're gone?
It goes back how I started the show off with. I mean, it's just, again, guys, here on the UnWokeShow, we understand where that, we have people who want to, to embrace the opportunity where that America gives people. And I agree with, like what Tim said, those people who have taken that time to go through the proper processes and to do that, where, yeah, again, thank you. We appreciate that. But I mean, you have to be able to follow those processes and make sure, just to make sure that, yeah, we know who the people are here and, and where you're going and all this others. I mean, we just something we have to do where, so, when you get stopped by a police officer, what's the first thing he asks?
I want to see your identification.
Exactly. When you, for most states, are going to vote, what's the first thing the guy sitting at the desk?
You got to show your ID.
Exactly. So how is that any different that if a actual citizen has to take the time to show their identification? And again, we were talking about before, it's like that we don't know really what's the true system or process of where the governments have that's interconnected or something like that. But we would have to believe there has to be that there's some type of system. But if there isn't, then figure out how it is, and then maybe we go by what you just got done saying, Tim. It's like, hey, you know what? We probably need to shut down the southern border for the meantime until we can actually get this revamped and all. So it's kind of like, when everybody was doing the whole thing for healthcare. Mm-hmm. Healthcare started like that, and they tried to rush it out really quickly. All of a sudden, they found that it's got bugs. People are on, trying to get the government healthcare, and it was taking them hours on end. It's like, so, but then what did they do? They ended up shutting it down and eventually got it to work, right?
Right.
Right, exactly. So if that's a national system for healthcare, there's got to be a way that we can do this to make sure that when we have people coming over here, that we know in some way, shape, or form, however we get their information, that we can figure out who they are, vet them properly. Oh, and that's another thing too. It's like, even when we were going through, when a lot of this kind of started coming up, we started hearing about the initial caravans and all the other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then we got into the pandemic in 2000, where what was the other big thing people were saying? We're letting people cross the border, and we're not even giving them COVID tests.
Yeah, that doesn't mean... in times of a global health crisis,
yes,
borders closed, go home, we'll check back with this later, right? So... I don't know. It at this point, I would argue we have to get our own house in order first. Mm-hmm. Stop kicking immigration reform. Stop kicking that can down the road. Mm-hmm. And actually start doing something about it. I do think Border Patrol, immigration, those all need additional resources to deal with the capacity that immigration presents, right? Those challenges that are associated with that. And we have to be tough.
Yes.
So I think at least those three items that I named off, I think that's a start. Is it a panacea? No. Is it the ultimate fix? Absolutely not. It's, that's always an evolving process.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But we have to do something. But, as I stated in that Associated Press article, where they're just releasing people across and then check back with us. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Right? That's not going to work.
Yeah. The current process is obviously not working, and it's like when you're having it where now with Title 42 now done, where it's, we could be having another, because I guess lack of a better term, we could be having another caravan, coming through Central America, like that coming up right now, and our process is still not being able to figure out everything. So no, I agree. I mean, it definitely needs to be fixed. It's not going to be perfect,
Right.
but we need to figure out something so that things are going to be run smoothly in the country. And like I said, I agree. Like I said, you brought up the father that was from Ecuador that wants to do something. That's the type of that's who we want, and that's all great. But there's still a way that we have to do this.
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. Unwoke Nation, we want to hear from you on Title 42. The fact that it's expired. How do we address our border issues? The flood of people coming in. Great topic as always, Rich. Again, Unwoke Nation, we want to hear from you. You can reach us at feedback@unwoketheshow.com. Again, that's feedback@unwoketheshow.com. We are on Twitter at unwoketheshow. Don't hesitate to look out there for us. Find us. We're on all the major podcast platforms: Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Find us, like us, subscribe to us. We want to hear from you. Rich, thanks again. And we'll look forward to talking to the Unwoke Nation on the next show.
All right, guys. Hope you have a great night. We'll see you on the next episode.